With just 1mm, the drill bit can puncture a man's eardrum, but he pushed it straight to 18mm, scaring the two old men opposite him out of their wits. Win, and you take home tens of millions. Lose, and your life is on the line. Who would have thought such a nerve-wracking game came from something as simple as 3 cards? They are the commoner, the emperor, and the slave. The emperor beats the commoner beats the slave, and the slave beats the emperor, a perfect triangle of counters. First, both sides choose a deck to play with. They choose either the emperor deck or the slave deck. The emperor side focuses on keeping the emperor alive, while the slave side tries to predict when the opponent will play the emperor and strike at the perfect moment with the slave. In short, it's a pure mind game. However, in this setup, the slave side is at a disadvantage. The emperor wins 80 of the time, while the slave only has a 20 chance to take down the emperor. So with such overwhelming odds, the payout for the slave side is more than 5 times higher than the emperor's. If you want big money, this high risk, high reward bet is the way to go. But Kaiji doesn't even have a single coin on him. Tonawa then offers him a deal. He can wager his organs instead. Make a mimida. Then his men bring out an execution device. With just a press of the remote in there, the needle will keep driving forward toward the eyeball or eardrum. Tonegawa gave Kaiji a wager of 3 centimeters. For every millimeter he wins, he earns 100 yen. But if he loses, the needle's tip will mercilessly drive further in. However, Kaiji only needs to bet 1 millimeter each round. Even if he loses all 20 rounds, the total risk is only 2 centimeters. So as long as he keeps his greed in check, he could have stayed utterly untouchable. But Kaiji, a hopeless gambling addict, had already been blinded by the lure of massive winnings. How could he settle for such petty scraps? Besides, these rich bastards treat gamblers like they're not even human. He was determined to make them pay dearly, driven by feverish adrenaline and an obsession with victory. Kaiji boldly wagered his own ear. Even more shocking, he bet 10 millimeters right from the first round. Then Kaiji chose the emperor deck as his hand after a moment's thought. He placed a card face down on the table. As both cards were slowly revealed, the first round ended in a draw.
Oh. This is Stay Open, Tonegawa-sama.
No one expected Kaiji to win the first round so easily, and he pocketed a full million in gambling chips. A fortune that once felt unreachable had just fallen into his hands in 10 seconds. Kaiji's chest surged with uncontrollable excitement and euphoria. In the second round, he didn't hesitate. He pressed another 10 millimeters, and things unfolded exactly as he anticipated. In the first round, both sides used commoner cards to probe each other, and for the second, Kaiji repeated the tactic and played emperor again. He won this round as well, and with 2 victories in a row, Kaiji began to get cocky. He felt the game was actually pretty easy.
And you are? The cookie high guy. Drew a major trump card at the start, but played a small card instead.
He thought his opponent would fall for it, but the next second he was stunned. The opponent had also played a small card. Clearly his ploy had already been seen through. With only 3 cards left in his hand, Kaiji was starting to panic. If he tied with a commoner again, his odds would drop to 50-50. So he decided to force another showdown, quietly praying the whole time that his opponent would play commoner. That nervous expression had already been seen through by Tonegawa, and he even voiced exactly what Kaiji was thinking. Then he drew the slave card he'd been hiding all along, leaving Kaiji completely stunned. Could this guy really read minds? But he had no time to dwell on it. Losing the bet meant he was about to face a brutal punishment as the steel needle kept drilling in. A nerve-ripping roar echoed in his ear, and Kaiji clutched his ear in agony, screaming uncontrollably. His screams filled the entire hall. Only when the needle finally stopped did he begin to calm down. Just as Tonegawa was basking in his triumph, the chairman behind him suddenly spoke up, telling him not to go too far. Although chaos makes the technique more effective at reading an opponent, if Kaiji became too terrified and lost his will to fight, there would be no thrill left in the gamble. Those words made Kaiji suddenly realize Tonegawa couldn't actually read minds. He had just happened to guess what Kaiji was thinking before the draw, and then confirmed the card from Kaiji's expression. Tonegawa exposed actually admired Kaiji. He hadn't expected Kaiji to figure out his little trick in such a short time. However, Tonegawa claimed that Kaiji had only guessed halfway. He really could see through an opponent's mind, thanks to 20 years of gambling experience. experience. People cornered at the edge between life and death. It runs through their minds in that final moment. That wavering of the soul always shows through their bodies. And I can see all of this clearly. Kaiji's nature, his habits, everything laid bare before me. They've long been under my control. Zhejiang Tonegawa's smoke arrogance makes Kaiji burn with anger. Just one win and he's already acting invincible. Watch me, I'll make you cry for real in the next round. He gathers up the Emperor deck on the table and rushes to the bathroom to inspect every card carefully. He'd rather believe the cards were marked, except that Tonegawa can actually read minds. But after searching for ages and finding nothing, he reluctantly returns to the table. But his little scheme is already obvious to Tonegawa, who scoffs that he'd never stoop to such cheap tricks. A true master fights with the mind. There was someone who tried that on the show once, to play Jay. Kaiji wagers 2mm first, testing the waters, then places a commoner card face down. When revealed, it's a draw. The moment makes Kaiji grin. Damn it, the old man was just bluffing. If he could really read minds, he would have played Emperor on the first round and won instantly. Now Kaiji finally feels he has a chance if he keeps his expression under control and gives nothing away. The outcome is far from decided. So after thinking it through, Kaiji confidently places a card face down. He predicts that Tonegawa will use Emperor on the second round, because this round gives him the highest odds. Drag it to the fourth, and his 80% chance drops to 50-50. Please shoot.
干嘛的？喝一个。你推走的，谁的？
Kaiji never imagined he'd misjudge so badly. Tonegawa presses the remote and the steel needle in Kaiji's ear burrows in again. Its grinding were so agonizing it nearly breaks him. At that moment the door to the room burst open. Standing there were the same injured teammates from before. Clearly Tonegawa wanted to use Kaiji as an example to intimidate the rest, to show them that crossing the Tei group leads to nothing but misery. After losing 2 rounds in a row, Kaiji was slipping into despair. Staring at the hopeless slave card in his hand, he felt as if he were drifting in a boundless empty sea, certain that losing his bearings would eventually lead him to death. Without seeing through the opponent's scheme, Kaiji still chose to lower it by 2mm to probe. To this, Tonegawa remarked, "Why not just go down 1mm? Wouldn't that be even safer?" Those words instantly irritated Kaiji. After all, he thought he is the protagonist here. If he plays too timidly, won't the audience look down on him? And so, caught up in his need to act tough, Tonegawa laid down his card for the next round. And when it was Kaiji's turn, he froze completely. His opponent's unexpected strategy in the previous round had shattered the elaborate defenses he'd built in his mind. This time the card in his hand felt unbearably heavy, his thoughts tangled like a knotted mess. In the end, he chose the Citizen card, playing it safe. When he saw that Tonegawa had also played Citizen, a wave of relief washed over him like surviving a near-death moment. Tonegawa simply said it was exhilarating, wasn't it? That this kind of game, probing the soul and the heart, is what truly brings out a clash of minds and spirits. Chicharito Yuki Yokobo. I'm sorry, 3 centimeters costs 3 million. And that just happens to be the distance from the device to his eardrum. But the guy pushed it down 14mm right from the start, thinking he had this round in the bag. Unexpectedly, the moment his opponent revealed the card, Kaiji was instantly wiped out. Tonegawa immediately hit the switch and the steel needle in Kaiji's ear drove in deeper. The shrill roar left Kaiji wishing for death. Saying this, the chairman told Tonegawa to ease up, otherwise Kaiji might quit the match altogether. But the very next second, Kaiji suddenly wagged another 10mm. This delighted the chairman, and before Kaiji could reconsider, he ordered his men to write the new number on the board. Now, as long as Kaiji loses this round, then even if he only bets 1mm afterward, the needle will still end up piercing his eardrum. His companions watching from afar thought he'd lost it, but the man beside them saw the real trick behind it, because if Kaiji wanted to win big in this gamble, he had to push hard on the slave card with its 5x payout. Otherwise, if it dragged on to the 5th round, he'd have no stake left to play. Looks like Kaiji is going all in. As the game resumed, both players placed a card face down on the table, and he saw both cards were citizens. Kaiji smiled. Everything was exactly as he'd predicted. He knew that the higher the stakes, the less Tonegawa would dare to gamble, and in the previous round he'd purposely placed the slave card second to plant fear and suspicion in Tonegawa's mind, making him believe the slave appearing in the same slot twice was possible. Though logically no one would play it 3 rounds in a row, Tonegawa would still cling to the better safe than sorry mindset and play a citizen in the second slot to avoid any risk. But Kaiji's carefully crafted scheme turned out to be nothing but a clown's move. As he confidently flipped his card, Tonegawa grinned, and he mocked Kaiji, saying, "He's still a clueless kid. You think you can bluff in front of me and outplay an old veteran? You're nowhere near qualified to take me on." "Yes, sir, move along. I need a card or two." No one expected Tonegawa to actually play the Emperor. Kaiji had in disbelief while his companions were frozen in shock. Tonegawa pressed the switch with a smug smile. The steel needle in Kaiji's ear drilled in even deeper. Kaiji clutched his head in agony, tears of frustration spilling from his eyes. Only after the round ended did Tonegawa reveal the truth. In this gamble, there's no such thing as a guaranteed win. There's only one small trick to tilt the odds side. Whenever he plays a decisive card, his body gives off tiny physical cues. Hearing this left Kaiji stunned. He never realized he showed any tells. How did this old man even notice?
Kama then. No, you don't look at me. Look at him. No, stop looking at me. Look at him. All his earlier arrogance vanished in an instant. What replaced it was sheer fear of Tonegawa.
When the bodyguard asked for his next wager, Kaiji trembled as he whispered 1 millimeter, but Tonegawa immediately mocked him. Just moments ago he was acting tough, and now look at him, pathetic, a total coward. Kaiji could only swallow his anger. As the next round began, it was Kaiji's turn to hold the Emperor deck, but after 4 straight losses he no longer dared to play freely. Saying this, Tonegawa kindly shared another secret. He could read Kaiji's hand, because whenever Kaiji played a key card, his posture dipped ever so slightly lower than usual. After drawing a card, your gaze will waver and other parts of the body too, all unconsciously giving off signals. So even if his mouth stayed shut, his body told the truth. Hearing this, Kaiji froze. Had he really been read that easily? But if that were true, why didn't the guy crush him the moment he played his first card? Clearly this was just Tonegawa bluffing to rattle him. Refusing to be intimidated, Kaiji tried a bold move. He opened with the Emperor, and Tonegawa played his card without hesitation.
But that's exhausting.
It was over. Even with the Emperor, Kaiji couldn't win. Fear wrapped around Kaiji like invisible chains, strangling his mind and body. He grew paranoid, too afraid to play the Emperor card in his hand. As a result, 3 rounds in a row ended in draws. His odds dropped straight to 50-50. Desperate, he chose to risk everything only to be read by Tonegawa again. Now, only the Emperor and slave cards remained, meaning Kaiji didn't even need to play. Tonegawa still easily took the 8th round. When he saw Tonegawa pick up the remote, Kaiji instinctively tried to rip the device off, but then he learned something even worse. The device had already fused with his ear. Without proper tools, removal was impossible. If he forced it, the drill would pierce straight through his eardrum. With another press of the button, the drill sank deeper into his ear, and Kaiji let out a scream of agony. Only 4 millimeters remained before it reached his eardrum. Kaiji was utterly hopeless now in his eyes. The old man across from him was no longer human, but a demon who saw through everything.
Do you have a minute? Can I already?
However, Kaiji had already thrown caution to the wind. He dropped a card, and Tonegawa, seeing this, he followed right after. When both cards were revealed, they were both citizens. Obviously, the first round was just mutual probing, but as the second round began, Kaiji fell deep into thought. This time, Tonegawa played slave, which only wins against Emperor. This means that if Kaiji played citizen, he'd not only be completely safe, but might even take out Tonegawa's slave. Just as Kaiji was about to play citizen, a bold idea suddenly burst into his mind. Before this, he had already suffered 6 straight losses. With Tonegawa's sharp perception, he'd surely sensed Kaiji's panic. He probably already predicted that Kaiji would lean toward the safe citizen play. If Kaiji played Emperor this round, he might just catch Tonegawa off guard. By now, Tonegawa had already chosen his card. Kaiji also drew out his Emperor card, yet his hand refused to let it go, as if fate itself were resisting this choice. Into confusion, Kaiji finally placed his card down. But when the cards were revealed, everyone was stunned. Tonegawa had played slave, and even more shocking, Kaiji had played citizen.
Kajisho katayo yata kata. Kajisho no. Shino mayoiga sayu. Unexpectedly, Kaiji actually won. His companions crouching behind him burst into celebration.
This made Kaiji realize he wasn't fighting alone, but the old chairman, silent until now, rose with a grim expression. Messing up at such a crucial moment, how is that any different from an amateur? Then raised his cane and smashed it onto Tonegawa's head. The sight left Kaiji completely stunned. We only lost one round. Does the chairman really need to blow up like that? Besides, there's no guaranteed way to win this game. The fact that Tonegawa has been winning up to now is already impressive. If Kaiji hadn't panicked and thrown out a citizen at random just now, he probably would have beaten him long ago. Thinking about this, Kaiji suddenly sensed something was off. Tonegawa had just revealed his so-called secret without holding anything back. Strange in itself, yet the chairman didn't question it at all. He said nothing, and instead, the moment Tonegawa slipped up, he exploded in rage and even laid hands on him. Such a drastic shift in behavior clearly defied common sense. Could everything earlier have been nothing but a facade? Was the real secret actually some kind of cheating device? Realizing this, Kaiji's anger flared. He began scanning every corner of the arena, trying to find any possible cheating mechanism. But no matter how hard he searched, he found nothing in. No one was peeking behind him, and the cards checked out fine. So who was feeding Tonegawa the information? Suddenly, Kaiji realized he was the only one who could see his cards. Could it be that he was subconsciously making tiny movements, or unintentionally revealing his hand?
Don't you have anything ready? The card hasn't even come in yet.
What the hell? In a match worth tens of millions, the old man never even looks at the cards. He just stares fixedly at the gold watch on his wrist. That's right, this old bastard is cheating. What Kaiji has on his ear isn't just an execution device. It's also a high-tech bio-signal transmitter. It weighs Kaiji's blood pressure spikes and temperature shifts, sending them directly and accurately to the old man's gold watch. Through these subtle bio-signals, he could effortlessly deduce what card Kaiji played. And once again, Kaiji's move was completely exposed. With that, Tonegawa now led the match 7-3. Then, wearing a smug grin, he pressed the button. The drill in Kaiji's ear dug in deeper, and he clutched his head in agony. He recalled that choosing between eye or ear was itself a planted setup. That random choice was meant to divert suspicion. Then they restricted his decision-making time to 5 minutes, though frequent glances at the watch wouldn't seem strange. And finally, with smooth talk alone, masked the unnatural confidence of someone guaranteed to win. Although Kaiji had seen through Tonegawa's cheating, he knew exposing it now was pointless. Tonegawa would deny everything. He might even disable the gold watch device temporarily, making it look ordinary. Then, no amount of checking would reveal anything. Just as Kaiji was fretting over it, a bolt of inspiration struck him like lightning. In this seemingly hopeless deadlock, he spotted a slim chance to fight back. Just then, the bodyguard asked for his wager, and Kaiji didn't hesitate. He bet 18 millimeters. The moment he said it, everyone froze in terror. He had already lost 27 millimeters before another 18, and the drill wouldn't just pierce his eardrum, it would shred the organs deep inside his inner ear. It could very well cost him his life. Tonegawa earnestly explained the danger to Kaiji. The old chairman cut him off since Kaiji was willing to gamble, then let him enjoy it. Now only 2 rounds remain. If Kaiji can win them, he'd walk away with 20 million. A fortune unimaginable for someone like him. Money you could never earn in a lifetime. He then had the bodyguards write the stakes on the board. And before the match began, Kaiji went to the restroom to collect his thoughts. In a daze, he recalled the horrific deaths of his companions. A wave of grief surged through him. Suddenly, the bathroom door swung open, and a fellow contestant walked in, urging Kaiji not to act on impulse. Everyone wanted to see Kaiji survive. He wasn't fighting alone. Hearing that, Kaiji couldn't hold back his tears. He knew it, this plan was impossible to pull off alone. If his friend managed to slip in here, it had to be fate guiding him. To avenge his fallen comrades, to put these arrogant capitalists in their place, he had to win. Toda he haichi no chikai nante koto no imi monova. Every time he picked up the remote, the man would clutch his head in terror, desperately trying to snap the drill fixed to his ear, but the old man told him it was pointless. The drill had already fused tightly to his ear. Forcing it off would only destroy it. Hearing this, Kaiji didn't panic. He simply said he needed to think in the restroom. But the next second, a gut-wrenching scream erupted from inside. At the table, Tonegawa instantly realized that his cheating device had been exposed, but he remained calm. If anyone tried to remove the device, the remote would immediately trigger an alarm, so any attempt at sabotage would be pointless. Soon after, Zhejiang, touching instead without clutching his bleeding ear. He stormed up to Tonegawa furious and told him that next round he'd make him kneel and apologize. Before Tonegawa could sneer, the chairman behind him lit up with excitement and ordered Tonegawa to win no matter what. He couldn't wait to see the drill tear straight through a man's skull. Then and under the old chairman's chilling laughter, the 11th round resumed and Tonegawa casually laid down a card. Kaiji stiffened for a moment, but once revealed both sides had played citizen. Clearly they were still probing each other in this opening exchange. Next it was Kaiji's turn. After a brief moment of thought, he placed his card face down on the table, and Tonegawa stopped pretending altogether, fixing his eyes on the readings on his watch only to find the blood pressure sensor wasn't working. He assumed Kaiji had bumped into him and caused a malfunction, so he checked Kaiji's temperature and pulse instead, noticing they were nearly unchanged. That convinced him Kaiji must have played citizen, because if he'd played slave, a crucial high-stakes card, his vitals should have spiked from excitement. Still, just to be safe, Tonegawa pretended he would play citizen, watching closely for Kaiji's reaction. Kaiji looked visibly startled, yet his vitals didn't budge. Tonegawa took it as Kaiji putting on an act, so he slammed down the Emperor without hesitation. Seeing Kaiji's shocked expression, Tonegawa was convinced Kaiji had indeed played citizen. Triumphant, he began adding length to the drill via the remote. Little did he know he was about to pay dearly for his arrogance. To his shock, Kaiji had actually played slave. Nagawa stared at the gold watch in disbelief. But when he saw the blood pouring from Kaiji's ear, he finally understood why the sensor had shown nothing. He immediately ordered the bodyguards to check the restroom. Then he strode up to Kaiji and yanked the towel from his hand. The gruesome sight left the bodyguards stunned with horror. At that moment, a bodyguard dragged out a trembling man from the restroom, and in his hands was the device along with Kaiji's severed ear. It turned out Kaiji had cut off both the device and his ear, out to feed Tonegawa false signals.
Wow, Morodo Tonoda. It's this. Scratch it out, Itami. To Sore no Nori. Koya Kuma Kara Ishoben. Kaiji glanced at the blood on the table. A sudden spark of inspiration shot through his mind.
He quietly palmed the card in his hand and slipped it out for a card from the previous round without anyone noticing, then made a deliberate noise to draw his opponent's attention, and finally splattered a few drops of his own blood onto the card right in front of the old man. Tonegawa was stunned by this entire sequence, thinking this cheating is way too crude. But even more shocking, Kaiji bet on 18 millimeters again, which was the exact distance between the drill and his inner ear. Lose and his life would be over. Kaiji's resolve made Tonegawa break into a cold sweat, while the chairman watched with the glee of an 80-year-old, promising Kaiji that if he won he'd claim his rightful 20 million, and even forced Tonegawa to kneel and apologize. And so, with the chairman's promise hanging in the air, the final round began. Tonegawa stared at the card in his hand, momentarily at a loss. He had relied entirely on the watch to cheat earlier, but now he had only intuition and reasoning to guide him. As the Emperor's side, he still held an overwhelming advantage, yet he knew that if he lost here, the chairman would never forgive him. So to make absolutely sure, Tonegawa chose to play citizen for the first round. Suddenly a spark of inspiration shot through his mind. A bold idea burst into his thoughts. Why not go for a surprise strike and throw out the Emperor card right away? Catch Kaiji completely off guard. But the moment the thought surfaced, hesitation gripped him again. If Kaiji predicted his prediction, wouldn't he be marching himself straight to defeat? While Tonegawa wavered, Kaiji across from him grew impatient, mocking him as a pathetic coward who can only rely on cheating devices, saying he has no real skill at all. No wonder the chairman looks down on him. Hearing this sent Tonegawa into a rage, and he raised the Emperor card ready to strike, but in the next second, he forced himself to calm down. He knew Kaiji, the kid, was provoking him, trying to bait him into a decisive showdown. Realizing this, Tonegawa swallowed his anger and chose the safer play. Kaiji, meanwhile, was fully confident and slammed down his card without hesitation. When the result came out, a draw. Kaiji flashed a smug grin. As expected, Tonegawa was a coward, always choosing the safest option while Kaiji only needed to charge forward like a wild beast with nothing to lose. He then slammed down another card. Faced with such a reckless approach, Tonegawa felt his heart jolt. He never imagined that this so-called trash could abandon fear so easily. It was clearly an insult to him. Tonegawa swore to himself that he absolutely could not lose. Kaiji would pay with his life.
Then bring it on.
Let's go on, miss.
Wait.
The old man only glanced at the cards on the table and his pupils blew wide open because there was blood on one of them. Just now, Kaiji sprayed blood on 2 cards. Although he carefully wiped them with a towel, the blood stains weren't completely removed, and those 2 cards were the commoner and the slave used in the last round, which means there's a 50 chance it's the slave. So Tonegawa immediately plays a commoner, but when they reveal the cards, Kaiji also has a counter. It looks like Kaiji has survived another round, but for Tonegawa, this is actually great news. Now all he has to do is wait for the next bloodstained card to appear. Then he can throw out a commoner and cut Kaiji down. Thinking of this, Tonegawa grows a little smug, so in the 3rd round he plays another commoner, and Kaiji also pulls a card from his crotch, and when he flips it, the round still ends in a draw. Next comes the crucial 4th round, the final choice for both sides. Kaiji plays first, and he has a 50 chance of winning this round. His life or death all hangs on this one play.
The main bed is all in on this.
As Kaiji slams his card, Downtonawa's gaze suddenly freezes. His eyes are sharp as a hawk locked tight onto that card. In that instant, his pupils dilate sharply again. That's right, the bloodstained card has finally appeared. An indescribable ecstasy surges up inside Tonegawa. He decisively pulls out a commoner ready to land the killing blow on Kaiji. But just as his card is about to hit the table, something unbelievable happens. Tonegawa suddenly hesitates. His mind is instantly shrouded in doubt. Could Kaiji really have missed such a fatal flaw? He's the one who sprayed that blood on in the first place. He should know better than anyone whether he wiped it clean or not. Not to mention this round is life or death for him. Lost and the price is your life. Someone as sharp as Kaiji would never bet on a hand he wasn't sure about. The only explanation is that he was setting a trap while he was chatting with the chairman. He must have swapped the slave card using some cheating trick, then splattered blood on both cards, meaning the blood-stained cards weren't citizen and slave, they were both citizens. Realizing this, Tonegawa broke into a cold sweat. Never expected a mere gambling stray like Kaiji to corner him like this, but he believed he was still one step ahead.
Good luck to me. My own cross to bear. As Tonegawa placed the Emperor card down, a smug grin spread across his face.
He thought he'd seen through Kaiji's sleight of hand so thoroughly that even a god couldn't save Kaiji now. No one could save him. Tonegawa didn't even wait for Kaiji to reveal his card before eagerly extending the machine's blade, as if victory was already in his grasp. But next second, Kaiji laughed full of fire. Get on your knees and admit you were wrong. Believe me, you will make this so tragic. No one expected Kaiji to win. The entire room erupted in cheers. Tonegawa stared at the card in disbelief, then burst into fury, demanding to know whether Kaiji had cheated. Kaiji, you sneered idiot. That card swap was performed just to bait you. I never actually switched anything. I only pretended to pick up the top citizen card. Tonegawa didn't believe a word of it. If he hadn't caught that gesture of switching cards and only relied on the blood marks, wouldn't he have been walking into a trap? But faced with Tonegawa's stouts, Kaiji remained utterly confident, because as the chairman's right-hand man, his skills are exceptional even within the organization. And his perception is razor sharp. Even if he noticed the bloodstains, he wouldn't take them at face value. I see right through Kaiji's real intentions, and Kaiji used that very sharpness against him, turning it into a perfect counterattacker. Right after Kaiji defeated Tonegawa, was originally ordered to kneel and kowtow in apology, but the chairman suddenly had a teppan grill brought in it, claiming that kowtowing on it would show true sincerity. Both hands and feet had to be pressed against it, and the forehead had to stay on the hot metal for at least 10 seconds. The count started the moment the forehead touched the grill. If it was less than 10 seconds, he had to get up and start again, until he completed a full 10 seconds in one go. To the old chairman. Only those who endure this pain can prove their sincerity. Of course, there are exceptions. Some people refuse to bow on their own. For cowardly gamblers like that, the old chairman has a special method. The single command, a forced kowtow device, was brought in by the bodyguards. Those shameless debtors who refuse to pay up are strapped onto it and made to kowtow and apologize by force. The obedient ones get only their foreheads burned, but if they resist, their entire face gets scorched. Kaiji, watching from the side, was drenched in cold sweat. He never imagined the old man was this twisted. With the chairman's command, the searing hot kowtow punishment began. The two bodyguards moved to seize Tonegawa, but he stopped them immediately. As the second in command of the Tei group, he naturally carries his own pride and dignity. Saying this, the chairman grew excited. After all, until this moment, no one has ever endured it on pure willpower alone. 10 seconds. He eagerly anticipated Tonegawa's performance, and Tonegawa didn't let him down. Gritting his teeth, he stepped slowly onto the iron plate. A sickening sizzle rang out instantly. No one expected Tonegawa to actually force himself through it. The stench of burning flesh spread through the air filled with rot-like stench and tortured screams. Those 10 seconds felt endlessly long. Kaiji watched the horrifying scene unfold beside him. Tears streamed uncontrollably from his eyes, because this was never what he wanted, and Tonegawa stayed in that hell for a full 12 seconds, collapsing into unconsciousness afterward. 2 bodyguards practically dragged him out of the casino. Seeing the chairman's deranged expression, Kaiji finally realized Tonegawa was just a puppet. The true demon was the chairman hiding in the shadows, taking him down. That would be the real vengeance for his fallen companions, but his companions rushed to stop him beating. Tonegawa was already a miracle. If he kept going, he might not leave alive. Besides, he'd already won over 20 million. He could clear all his debts with it. There was no need to take another deadly gamble. With his companions pleading non-stop, Kaiji reluctantly let go of the idea. But just as they were about to head back, Kaiji stepped on a cardboard box on the floor. A bold idea burst into his mind.
Kaiji Toshiro. Man deliberately drew the circle off center. Then he tossed it hard onto the ground, drew another crooked one, threw that down too.
It looked like Kaiji's hands were trembling, but he was actually cheating. Just now, Kaiji glanced at the cardboard box on the ground. A bold idea suddenly flashed through his mind. He picked up the scraps of paper scattered on the floor and carefully tucked them into the gap along the side. The scrap fit perfectly inside the box no matter how you shake it. It won't show and it can be pulled out easily from inside. The flawless setup made Kaiji ecstatic because he had found a way to beat the chairman. Hearing this, his companions were utterly confused. Kaiji then took out a piece of stiff tissue paper and tore it into small squares, then borrowed a ballpoint pen from the companion behind him and drew a circle on each square. Just like that, he made a simple lottery slip. That's right, Kaiji was going to bet on a blind draw against the chairman, except his odds were 100% because they could hide fake winning slips in the side of every box beforehand. That way, no matter which box the bodyguard brought over, there would be a winning slip waiting inside, and Kaiji could simply pull it out on his turn, guaranteeing victory. One companion whispered, "Isn't this outright cheating?" But Kaiji snapped back at him instantly. "Cheating? Are you kidding me? The other side cheated first. They nearly got us killed and cost many of our friends their lives and my ear too. If I hadn't exposed their tricks, I'd already have a drill hole through my skull. So yeah, whatever it takes, we win."
To the end. Konnichiwa. Here I come. It's him. Sanya.
My name is She's on the Middle. Of cocky guy in the night? Even though Kaiji wasn't wrong in what he said, but his partner raised another concern. What if the chairman drew the winning ticket himself? Wouldn't you be walking straight into your own execution? Hearing this, Kaiji insisted it was impossible. The odds of that happening were practically zero. Besides, how could they back down over such a tiny risk? It was too good an opportunity to abandon. With Kaiji's foolproof plan set, his teammates began preparing in a rush. They stuffed the doctor tickets into the paper boxes, while dealing with every new issue that popped up to make sure that the remaining fake tickets wouldn't be discovered. They even left one guy hiding in the restroom, since the bodyguards would come in later to collect part of the boxes and he would flush the rest down the toilet. That way the chairman would never find evidence of their cheating. After finishing everything, Kaiji returned to the room. The old chairman, seeing him, remarked that this youngster was truly impressive. He'd actually beaten Tonegawa in a gamble, but before he left, he hoped Kaiji would clear his remaining 6 million debt. To his surprise, Kaiji crushed the note in his hand and stepped up to him, declaring he wanted another bet because after paying the debts and getting his ear treated, his 20 million prize money was almost gone. So he needed to win more through gambling. The chairman scoffed someone as insignificant as Kaiji. How could he deserve to gamble with him? He boasted that he'd weathered storms far greater than this. Even winning 20 million was already the limit for someone like Kaiji, and now he dared stand before him. "Watch yourself, boy, or I'll have you tossed into the sea for the fish." With that, the chairman turned to leave, but Kaiji grabbed him in the next second, using provocation to force him into accepting the gamble. However, the chairman is just as shrewd, fully aware that Kaiji may be plotting something. He flat out refuses to gamble with Kaiji no matter what. Seeing chairman dodge him like this, Kaiji boils with anger. The old man got countless people killed and now he thinks he can just walk away. There's no way he gets off that easily. Seeing Kaiji so relentless, the old chairman decides to humor him once and lets Kaiji choose the game. Kaiji prayed him to hesitate, but inside he's already overjoyed. He has the guards bring him paper and a compass, then starts turning them into sheets of carbon paper and draws circles on them to serve as the winning ticket. He intentionally draws the circles crooked and tosses them to the floor. Draws another crooked one and throws that down too. It looks like his hands are shaking, but he's actually setting up a cheat. Kaiji already hid the real winning ticket in the box, but to avoid the judges noticing later, this is the only way he can cover it up. Once he pulls a fake ticket, he'll dramatically shake the box, sending the carbon papers flying across the room. Then the real ticket will mix in with the ones on the floor, letting him mask the switch perfectly. As Kaiji builds his path to victory, he also has to cleverly hide his intentions, so the cunning chairman doesn't see through him. After all the lengthy prep, he finally finishes his setup. A pile of blank slips and a single winning ticket. He declares that whoever finds the winning ticket first wins. Saying this, the chairman tells a bodyguard to bring a container, but what they bring is a bag and a briefcase. The bag is transparent, you can see right through it, but the briefcase belongs to them, so who knows what tricks they might have hidden inside.
Here it comes, means
Audio, let's go in response. Kaiji suggested using a cardboard box as the container, but it had to be unopened. The bodyguard had no choice but to fetch one from the restroom, and all of this was already part of Kaiji's plan. The box in the restroom had long since been tampered with. Kaiji pretended to scrutinize the box carefully, then asked the chairman to check it too once both sides confirmed it was clean. The bodyguard pulled out all the tissues, leaving only an empty box. They thought everything was proceeding as planned, but the chairman suddenly laid out 3 conditions. First, to prevent cheating, the ballot slips must not be crumpled, and before drawing, everyone must roll up their sleeves. Both sides must check each other's fingers for hidden objects. Then the chairman demanded to draw first. Hearing this, Kaiji's companions were immediately displeased. The drawing order should be decided by rock, paper, scissors, but the chairman insisted he had already agreed to all of Kaiji's conditions, so he should at least get this one privilege as an old man. If he couldn't draw first, he wouldn't play at all. Hearing this, Kaiji hesitated, but thinking the old man likely didn't have that kind of luck, he agreed to the demand. But the third condition nearly scared Kaiji senseless. 20 million chips weren't worthy of matching the chairman's stake. To gamble with him, the minimum stake was 100 million, so whatever Kaiji lacked would have to be covered with his own organs. No sooner had he said this than this. The bodyguard brought a mysterious object to the gambling table. When the chairman pulled back the cover, what emerged made everyone gasp.
I am so honored. You'll be young for neither. No one expected that the wager this time would be a finger.
Of course, the higher the stakes, the bigger the payoff. A bodyguard then rolled in a massive pile of cash. This time it wasn't some voucher like before. This was cold, hard cash. Staring at money he could never earn in several lifetimes, an overwhelming desire began eating away at Kaiji's resolve. The thought that losing meant 4 fingers gone snapped Kaiji back from the abyss of temptation. If he lost, it wasn't just the fingers and the prize. He'd be buried in debt and agony. Even if he refused to gamble and used 20 million to pay off debts, he'd have almost nothing left. With a 900 a month salary, he could work himself to death and still never reach 100 million. In the end, weighing everything, Kaiji accepted the chairman's terms.
Entrance Kaizen Chuchino. Yoru ni naritai. Now I'll show you the Joker in the woods. In this lottery draw, the prize is 100 million, but the price of failure is 4 fingers.
The man stayed calm. He'd already tampered with the box. As both placed their tickets into the box, the showdown of the century officially began. The bodyguard shook the box vigorously, mixing the slips as much as possible. Kaiji's heart pounded. He feared the fake ticket hidden inside would get dislodged. Once the papers were thoroughly mixed, the chairman drew first. He slowly slipped his hand into the box. His hand wandered inside, feeling around. Kaiji prayed desperately. As long as the chairman misses, even once the win is his. But the chairman's smile grew eerily twisted, and when he looked at the slip he'd drawn, he lit up like he'd tasted something wickedly sweet. The sight made Kaiji's stomach drop. Could it be? Did this old bastard actually pull the winning slip? Seriously, if he hits the odds like that, why doesn't he win the lottery?
Kaiji didn't expect it at all turns. Out it was just the old man's plan. Kaiji cursed all 18 generations of his ancestors in his heart.
But the anger only lasted a moment, quickly giving way to excitement and joy, because victory was finally within reach. Then Kaiji, claiming he couldn't use one hand properly, asked the companion behind him to hold the box for him. It looked like an ordinary gesture, but in fact the two had planned everything. Once Kaiji grabbed the winning slip, he would pretend to celebrate and flip the box over, mixing the real ticket with the scrap lead on the floor, creating the perfect distraction. Then a flash of resolve crossed Kaiji's eyes. As he slowly reached into the box, his fingers instinctively slid toward the inner wall. He thought the suffering was finally about to pay off, but the moment his fingertips touched the inner side, sudden hollow dread surged through him. The winning ticket I'd hidden had vanished without a trace. Kaiji frantically searched inside in disbelief, his fingers sweeping every corner of the box, but it was all in vain. The ticket had evaporated into thin air. The sudden twist shattered Kaiji's composure completely. He didn't know what went wrong, but the arrow was already knocked. All he could do was pray for luck now. As long as your luck as a dog holds out, maybe you can claw out a sliver of hope in this chaos. So Kaiji shut his eyes and drew at random, but Lady Luck still refused to show up. As expected, Kaiji didn't pull the winning ticket. Even though he'd braced for it, the result still hit him like a sledgehammer. The chairman was delighted by the sight and couldn't help mocking him, calling him foolish for daring to challenge someone of his stature. He said Kaiji had only been unlucky, now he'd show how quickly he could crush him. The chairman then began his second draw, and during that moment, Kaiji cursed furiously in his mind. Damn it, you think you're guaranteed to win? With that smug face, no way. Before he even finished the thought, the chairman had already drawn, and when he saw the result, that eerie smile crept onto his face again. Having been tricked once already, Kaiji snapped, what now? Cut the act and just show me. Kaiji didn't expect the chairman to be the one who drew it first in that instant. Kaiji went completely numb, his eyes filled with shock and despair. A nightmare like this, and it had actually happened to him. Before he could even process it, the bodyguards were already preparing to carry out the sentence. At that moment, Kaiji plunged into utter despair, a tidal wave of panic crashing over him. Tears of despair streamed uncontrollably as fear made him instinctively grab the guard's hand and glance at the chairman opposite, his eyes filled with a desperate plea for mercy. But thinking of his comrades who had died miserably and his own pride, Kaiji forced himself to let go. He couldn't allow himself such humiliation. If he dared to gamble, he had to dare to lose. He couldn't let them look down on him no matter how badly he lost. The harder it gets, the more you have to stand tall. A man should shoulder this pain and responsibility. As the guillotine came down, Kaiji's dream of striking it rich overnight shattered with it. He stared fixedly at the ticket in his hand, recalling the old chairman's parting words, "This slip carries the emperor's luck, and if he could harness it, he'd surely make a fortune one day." Thinking of this, Kaiji, boiled with anger, cut off my finger, and still tries to break me one day. I'll chop you to pieces and feed you to the dogs. Just then his companions walked over, carrying the cardboard box, worried that the fake ticket inside might be discovered, so they brought the whole box along. But after searching for ages, they still couldn't find the fake ticket. Kaiji leaned in impatiently, and in an instant his mind blew apart. In the corner of the box was a tiny crumpled ball of paper, and once opened it was the fake ticket they had hidden. At that moment Kaiji finally understood. The old man had seen through their plan from the start. During the first draw, he had already crushed the fake ticket into a ball and discarded it. No wonder they couldn't find it no matter how they searched, but his companions were still confused. Then, how did the old man draw the real ticket in the second round? Could it be he really had that ridiculous luck? Kaiji fell into deep thought. Suddenly, his pupils widened sharply, because he spotted a clear crease on the real ticket. Like lightning splitting the night, the truth struck him. He immediately recalled the moment they placed the tickets together. He was the first one to let go. Obviously, the old man seized that moment to fold it slightly, and that tiny mark was all he needed to pick it out. The reason he didn't take out the winning ticket in the first round wasn't just to watch Kaiji panic when he couldn't find it, but to give Kaiji a chance to draw again. But Kaiji didn't treasure that hard-won chance. Instead, he gambled everything on so-called luck. So this failure is entirely of his own making, born from his own recklessness and carelessness. At the same time, his hatred for Hamada only deepened.
Kaiji, this gamble has no safety net. You're wagering everything. No. No matter how much you wish otherwise, there's no escape on the other side. My God, so all you walk away with are those severed fingers.